So tonight's theme is hope and resilience. I think that's a great theme. First and foremost, can everybody please silence their cell phones? Make sure they're all off. And be respectful when the storytellers are up on stage. And I'd just like to welcome everybody. So in your packets, you'll have these little heart cards, and you fill them out, and you'll put them in a little brown paper bag at the end of your aisle. So tonight we have a bunch of wonderful storytellers, and we are so eager to get this started. So, is it Jill Jean, the director of the library? Can she come up, please?
Good evening, everyone. It's really high up here. It's quite amazing. But on behalf of Kitsap Regional Library, I'd like to welcome all of you to Story Night here at the Roxy Theater. For the last 15 years, the Kitsap Regional Library has selected a book and invited the entire Kitsap community to read together. One Book, One Community is an invitation to our entire community to use the power of story and conversation to recognize our shared experiences. In these stories, we look for themes that feel urgent and critical to our community at that moment. This year, in a time of challenges that have forever changed our world, the theme of hope and resilience seemed paramount. And we are trying something new this year. Going beyond just one book, we have selected 3. One for adults, one for teens, and one for kids, so that even the youngest members of our community can join in the conversation. So thank you for joining us tonight. Time and again, we are reminded about how sharing stories and connecting through conversation is a pathway to hope and resilience. Before we get started with tonight's events, I love to have the opportunity to thank people who have really helped this night happen. First of all, while our library system is very well supported by the community for all the essential services we offer, it is our Kitsap Regional Library Foundation that really provides us with funding for nights like tonight. And so, thank you. On behalf of all of us, I'm thanking our wonderful foundation, and our staff are sitting up at the next level. So thank you. I'd also like to say that tonight was made possible through the gifts of time and experience from our friends, our partners at Kitsap Strong, Kitsap Public Health and Enlightenment, as well as Dr. Lillian Robertson, Executive Director of the Marvin Williams Recreation Center, and Dr. Kimberly Riley, Licensed Marriage and Family Therapist. And let's not forget tonight's headlining partner. In 2014, Stephen Garner came to the library with a crazy, magical idea. He wanted to host a regular event where people could come together to hear and share stories and thought, and just maybe the library could join him. 7 years later, Story Night has a devoted following of storytellers and story enthusiasts coming together to build friendships and maybe just to show a little kindness to one another. Early on, we saw a connection between the goals of Story Night and the goals of One Book, One Community. And every year, Story Night has featured a special event dedicated to the One Book theme. It seems only fitting that this year's main event is a special story night like the one we're all going to experience this evening. So now I would like to welcome to the stage the founder of Story Night and our host and our partner, Stephen Gardner.
be on stage so I can take the mask off. Thank you so much. I am thrilled to see a crowd this size here and that we all have a lot of room to spread out and to not be so close to each other that I don't know what to say about that. That hasn't been said over the last year, but first of all, thank you to Kitsap Regional Library for making this possible tonight. So a round of applause for them, please. Thank you to the Roxy Theater for providing a venue for us. We'll get into a little bit of that. Thank you to BCAT. They're broadcasting this live tonight on BCAT TV. It's also live streaming, and assuming my mother-in-law, who just turned 80, has figured out the technology, has figured out how to get to this place, because usually we post this on Facebook Live, that's fairly easy. We're doing a link to the BCAT live stream. Hopefully she's there. Can y'all turn around and say hi to my mother-in-law? She's in Utah. And anybody else who's watching. She just, as I said, she just celebrated her 80th birthday. I tell you, you'd never know it. We have some first-timers here tonight, right? People who've never been to Story Night? Yeah. So that gives me an opportunity to tell a story. Jill touched on this. Yes, 2014. So it goes back a little farther than that. I used to be a reporter for the Kitsap Sun. It's a newspaper. You may have heard of it. And probably 2011, 2012, we started bouncing around the idea with reporters Chris Henry and Angela Dice, primarily. Josh Farley was a little bit involved in those conversations as well. We started talking about doing something like this. Chris and Angela had both heard The Moth before. How many of you have heard The Moth? Yeah. Just point, for those of you who are new, I didn't invent the process that was the program that we're going to see tonight. I don't have a lot of original thoughts. So we just thought we could do something like what The Moth does, but do it here in Bremerton, and then it might have value. We thought, let's give it a go. Angela and I met at the Hilo Cafe, and we talked over plans. We thought of a coffee shop. Do we have to get a PA system? All that kind of stuff. And it just so happened that right after that, an organization called Fields End on Bainbridge Island decided they were going to do a story slam. So we both decided, well, let's go to that and see how they do it, and if possible, copy all of their ideas and do it here. And the night came, and neither one of us could go. So we knowing that there was another event happening, gave us an opportunity to procrastinate. And I seldom pass up opportunities to procrastinate. And knowing that I missed that one, what was really kind of invested in the idea of seeing one before we did one. I waited another 6 months till they did another one, and I went to that. I don't know if I told a story that night or not, but I think I went to one more before we decided we're going to put a plan together. And how that came to be was in the summer of 2014. I was in the newsroom again, and we were talking about it again, just talking. And Josh Farley, you may know him, reported for the Kitsap Sun, which is probably the fourth thing you know him for. Bridging Bremerton, story walks, and quiz night. Not trivia night, quiz night. It's his flavor. He puts on a special, well, he has been. I'm sure they'll come back. But he is big on community events. He's a community-minded person. He said, what do I need to do to help you get this going? So I said, I guess my feet's to the fire, because if I don't do it, Farley's going to do it, and I don't want to do it to him. So he got me in touch with him in that saloon. I was starting to create flyers, starting to design flyers, and then I said, first Thursday in September 2014. And I was getting things ready to get printed, and I thought, I ought to look and see what the NFL schedule is. Because the Seahawks had won the Super Bowl that year, and as it turned out, the Seahawks and the Packers were going to be playing at what was then, I think, West Field. So I said, okay, good, another opportunity to procrastinate. I'm not going to compete against the Seahawks. Let's put this off another month. And we did it, and I had passed the flyers around all over the community, got some, and what ended up happening is, I managed to contact some people. So I don't know if you know Jo Walters. I think she was at the first one. And there were a lot of, there were some of my friends. Our niece, who was living with us, came to it. My wife was there. Josh and his family was there, his extended family, and some friends of Josh and mine. And we had 25 people. We had our first story night in October of 2014, so it was exactly 7 years ago. 2 months later, we had a second one, and it was after the second one that I started talking with Sarah Jaff at the library, saying that I think we could, this might be a nice partnership. Because I wanted it to work. It had been fun. I like attention. I like standing on the stage. It would give me an opportunity once a month. And she said, yeah, I think it's a good idea. And as far as I know, she went to the board and everybody else there, and they said, yeah, we could get behind that. So we had one more at the Manette Saloon. The Manette Saloon wasn't the perfect venue for this because as quiet as it is in here, it's not always that quiet in the Manette Saloon. And they can't really ask people to be quiet in there. So I didn't know if our event had enough people that the Cloverleaf room wouldn't feel cavernous. But we did it, and instead of 25 like we had the first time, 20 like we had the second time, and about 20, that's library math for you librarians. On the third one, we had about 40 people for the first one that we did at the Cloverleaf in March of 2015. And we've been going every month since. Until March of 2020. And then we took it online. But the library's been supportive this whole time. We've had big crowds. We've been averaging 50 to 70 people. This is a pretty good sized crowd in a much bigger room. And I was talking to Lisa Lechuga, I probably mentioned it more than once, and I thought, you know, what would be cool is one day if we could do one at the Roxy. And I couldn't quite figure out how we would make that happen, but I had just thrown it out there. It was just something that I was dreaming of. And pandemic comes, and we go online, and then finally in July, I feel like we can get started again in person. We had Kitsap Public Health come out and offer vaccines that night. The story night crowd is pretty well vaccinated, I found out. 2 people did show up and get vaccinated and came to story night, so we grew our audience by 2 people. And then, the next month, things have kind of changed. And so I can't tell you how excited I am to see people well spread out in a big room. And this is just a dream come true, because Lisa said, why don't we have story night at the Roxy? And things were looking like we're in the clear now. And I said, yeah, let's do it. And in some ways, it's not the ideal time to have an event at the Roxy. But in other ways, it's the perfect time to do this. Because you're all here. You're spread out. I see lots of masks out there, thank you. And it's working great. It's working great. So, 7 years ago, I put off holding a story night because of the Seahawks game. Tonight, the Seahawks are playing and we're at the Roxy. So again, thank you, my librarian friends. There's no way this would have ever happened without you. So here's explain how the process works. If you're not familiar with the Moth in a story slam, what we do is we set out a theme. The theme isn't always right behind us in case a storyteller forgets. But tonight our theme is Hope and Resilience, and it's based on the one book offerings put out by the library. And I do recommend reading the books. I've read the adult book. I'm working my way through the teen book, and I'm going to read the kids' book too. But it's a perfect thing for where we are right now. So we lay out a theme, and we say, storytellers, have you got stories? And they're true stories, autobiographical, no props, no notes. Their truth is, I can't fact check them, so we assume they're true, but they're supposed to be true autobiographical stories. And there's a lot we get out of hearing these stories. What I do is I draw a name out of a bag, and whoever's name comes out first is our first storyteller tonight, so I'm going to do that. And so if I call your name and you're a storyteller, and if I call your name and you're not a storyteller, you have 3 or 4 seconds to get one ready. If I call your name, come on up the stairs and have a seat on the chair over there. You may not be sitting for long, In between each story, I read what you've written on these cards. And at the moment, I have 2. I assume there are more that have been written out there. So you're part of the program tonight. So that's how you participate anonymously. So the first name I'm going to draw is... By the way, we have a website, storynight.org. I can't think of anything else to delay this. Doug Avery Jr. is our first storyteller. So in between each story, we have these anonymous comments that we read. And tonight, our question is, what does hope mean to you? And the first one for tonight is a desire for something to change or happen, usually positive. What does hope mean to you? Hope is a choice that is easy to make when things are easy and necessary the rest of the time. I think we all could agree with that. Oh, we got more. Okay, now you're going to be relying on my ability to read your handwriting, so if you don't want me to mess it up, I can't promise that even if you do write it well, but, oh goodness, okay, we'll get through these, and then we'll put the rest in the bags. Where's that bag? Did I take it?
I took it.
Okay, good. No, you hang on to it. You have it. Okay, what does hope mean to you? A light even at the darkest of times. All right. Next one. Definition. A feeling... I have dry mouth, and this is a long one, so bear with me. A feeling of expectation and desire from certain things to happen. To me, I'd like to think I don't expect something to happen, but rather I still believe I am capable of accomplishing this goal, to say it is within my power to reach this thing, as opposed to waiting for it simply to fall in my lap. I take comfort in knowing I am capable of achieving great things because there is still plenty of time. Hope, to me, isn't expecting things to happen, but rather having time and making good choices to make things happen. Excellent. Now, if you want, I'll post that on Facebook so you can read all these without my verbal editing. All right. Knowing life will be better than it is now. What does hope mean to you? You know what? This one is real for me. I recently wrote that we have 2 seasons in Washington. One is summer, the other is seasonal affective disorder. And we are just getting into it. What does hope mean to you? Knowing that spring will come eventually, even when the winter really sucks. I didn't write that one. Applause for all of our hope fans. And now please welcome to the stage Doug Avery Jr.
Man, I just knew I was going to go first. I don't normally do this, but tonight I'm actually going to tell a story for the second time, which is okay because I assume most of you are going to hear it for the first time. And the story I'm going to tell is, coincidentally, it's the very first story I ever told at a story night. And I'm going to tell it again tonight because it still kind of resonates for me, and I really think I need to remind myself of what I'm capable of. So I'm going to kind of retell the story. We'll get right into it. Karaoke. I love karaoke. Like, who doesn't like a good night out, singing terribly at the top of your lungs to a microphone because nobody cares what you sound like? That's me. Yeah, right? You guys get it. I love karaoke. This is not going to be a story about karaoke, though. I discovered karaoke for the first time one night. I went out with a bunch of friends. I've been having a pretty rough time at home. I was living with mom and dad. You know, I had a child I was trying to take care of. I was working odd jobs here and there because I couldn't find employment anywhere. And one of my friends was like, hey, let's get out for the night, let's kind of get you relaxed. And I was like, sure, let's do this. And then we walked into a bar. And I don't typically do bars because, I don't know, I just can't sit at a bar and drink and chit-chat. It's just kind of not my thing. But then I heard the greatest thing in the world, and it was this 40-year-old man cackling out "You Are One of Us" by, I forget who, it doesn't matter, I'm sure. And I thought, man, that's really cool. I think I can do this. And so I got up there and I tried it, and I did "Lose Yourself" by Eminem, because that's what you do when you've never done karaoke before. And apparently I was really good because everybody liked it. And like, it was the first time I'd ever actively participated in anything publicly. I mean, granted, I had a few shots of liquid courage, but I was just never one for public speaking, or confidence for public speaking in that, for that matter. But somehow that one performance did it for me. I was hooked. I was like, I love karaoke. I am good at this, and I'm going to do it a lot. What inevitably happened was I'd go out with all of my friends, and I'd be the only one who would go up and do karaoke. Nobody else ever would. And that was just fine by me. And we happened to walk into this Chinese restaurant one night, which if you guys don't know, they are fantastic for karaoke. And there was a karaoke contest happening. And I thought to myself, I could do this. No problem. So I entered it. And then as soon as everybody started singing, I realized I had a problem. This was just no mere karaoke contest. It might as well have been American Idol auditions. They were good, well beyond my limit. But I thought, you know what? I've signed up. You know, I don't usually commit to things and stick to things because as I've said, I don't do well in public surroundings and settings. So I said, I'm already there, let's do it. So I continued on, I signed up for the competition, I put my song in, and I listened to everybody sing, like Carrie Underwood, Kelly Clarkson, Clay Aiken, all those American Idol graduates. That's what they all sounded like. And here I am waiting for them to call my name so I can sing "Bust a Move." Well, it happened. They called my name, and I got up there and I took the mic, and I don't think they realized that I was about to sing "Bust a Move." I don't think I realized I had what I had in me. I know Steve said no props, but this is the point of my story where I'm going to require a little bit of audience participation. I hope you guys don't mind. All right. So I knew I had to bring some flair to my song in order to win this competition. So I'm in my head, I'm scribbling down nonsense words, trying to find a way to make my song like stick out amongst everybody else. And there's a break in the song where they do nothing but like play a musical instrumental, and I'm awkward. Like I would just stand up there like this the whole time if I wasn't ready. But I was ready, I had a plan. So during the instrumental, I would ask the audience, I got all hyped up, and I said, I'm going to say "move," and you're going to say "bust it." So I said "move," and they said "bust it." Yeah. Did that a few times, and to my surprise, they all participated. Like, I was feeling pretty good. When I got off the stage, when I put the mic down, like, I thought I might actually have a shot to win the thing. This is awesome. I'm feeling pretty good. Well, the end of the night came, competition was over. I did not win, but I did get second place. And I was really proud of myself. I was really happy with what I had accomplished. But like I said, this isn't a story about karaoke. This is a story of what that night gave me the courage to do. I'm not a big fan of change. And as I mentioned earlier, I was stifled at home. I was having a hard time finding work. I was trying to raise my children. I had another child on the way. Winning that competition, knowing that I found something that I was good at, knowing that I had actually built some confidence for myself, allowed me to do what I did a little while later. I was living in Connecticut at the time, and I decided to board a plane, move out to Washington with my uncle. I left my daughter behind. I left my unborn son at the time behind to try and find a better, more confident version of me. When I got out here, I started looking for work immediately. And in a month and a half, I had a job interview. Now, I had been 3.5 years unemployed back home, so this is a big thing for me. A month and a half. I walked into the job interview, and much to my God-honest surprise, the store radio was playing "Bust a Move." And it kind of gave me some confidence in the interview, because that was one of the things that I held no confidence in. I had been denied jobs so often that it was really hard for me to even interview in them. But I had the confidence. I went through that interview, and I got hired for the job. So it took me a month and a half, when it took me 3.5 years to do in Connecticut. Now, 9 years later, almost 9 years to the day, it'll be the 27th of this month, I am still at that job. I run my own store now. I run the highest store in their company right now. And needless to say that my confidence has grown in the 9 years, much more than I ever thought it could. And it's all thanks to one night at karaoke. When I feel like I'm in a rut, or if I need a little bit of hope for myself, I put on my favorite song, and then when I say move, thank you very much.
Another round of applause for Doug Avery. So the key to get people to say busta, if that's something you really need, is to say move. So move. Okay, you got them nice and warmed up. Thank you. All right. Our next storyteller tonight, Alicia Morales. She's popular. Okay. What does hope mean to you? The thing with feathers, etc. I can get through this. Yeah. What does hope mean to you? I'm going to say that one. What does hope mean to you? Star Wars Episode 4. It is a new kind of hope. Lots of fans of that one. Nice. All right. What does hope mean to you? When Oreos go back to 2 for $5. That's too much hope for me. All right, please welcome Alicia Morales.
Hello, friends. Hi. So, I'm a bit shorter than Doug. So, it is 2015. And I am in my 3rd year of teaching at a job I absolutely love. It's been hard, but the kids are just the reason why I get up every morning. And then my principal pulls us all into our weekly meeting to tell us that the school is closing. And I am rapidly losing time on my dream job. So, I look for other work, but there's nothing ever as good, right? So I was also doing an internship over the summer where I was doing cancer research at Fred Hutch as a teacher. And so it was my last internship summer. I'm trying to look for a job and play researcher at the same time. I don't know what I'm going to do. And my boss, my PI at the time, the person whose lab I was in, offers me a job, just like on the spot. Like, Morales, we like what you're doing here. Well, you want to come work for me? Yeah, okay. So I made the transition from teacher to researcher, totally unexpected. And I remember sitting at my desk, filling out HR paperwork, and that's always the worst part of like getting your new job. Like, you get the hi and then there's the paperwork. So I remember just like sitting there, seeing the Fred Hutch logo at the top of the paper, like, and then the voice in the back of my head said, you maybe have 6 months, maybe a year before they find you out. Oh, okay. You know you don't belong here. You're some weirdo teacher from Bremerton. Like, these are doctors and researchers. Like, they'll know that you don't belong. So I hid for a very long time. For the first 3 months of my brand new job that I was so excited about, I didn't talk to anybody outside my lab. I figured if I made myself super small, that nobody would see that I was a fraud and I didn't belong. Until there was my lab mate. His name was Eric. He worked next door. And Eric would always come around, he would see me with my head down, and he'd always try to talk to me and get my attention. It's like, I can't talk to you, I'm sorry, I'm very busy. But his persistence drew me out, and he drew me into the community of Fred Hutch. And I learned that those awful thoughts that I was thinking to myself were not so out of the ordinary. It is a phenomena that a lot of people experience called imposter phenomena or syndrome or experience. It's when we try to we try to limit ourselves because it's easier that way. It hurts a lot though. But I learned about all of this at Fred Hutch, and I was like, oh my gosh, this has been plaguing me for so long, and now I actually have a name for this feeling. Well, I have to learn all that I can learn about this. So I did. I went to every seminar that they were given about it, and I got to the point where I would tell my story to incoming high school students, and I was kind of like the imposter phenomena person, and I would, by telling my story, I was hopeful that other kids would never have to go through what I had to go through. So one of the things in one of my many workshops that I went to that they had us do was to draw our feelings. And so it's weird when you think about putting something tangible into something that's been so untangible for so long. And so the instructor gave us a little time, and I drew my little picture, and when I was done, and I actually had a moment to reflect, it just broke my heart. Because what I saw was just like hurt personified. And I didn't know where it had come from. And I knew that these wonderful high school students that I would work with over the summer felt the same exact thing. And so I said to myself, no more. Never again. I'm going to go back to college. I'm going to learn all about this. And so I decided to study trauma and resiliency in educational settings. And so with the intention of, maybe I can help another kid or two. So fast forward, I'm working, I'm going to school full time. It's hard, but I have a goal, and I have that hope that I will make it so that nobody ever has that little drawing ever again. So I graduate, I feel super great. I say to myself, you know what? Maybe it's time for me to go back to education. Because at that time, my job really sucked. If you've ever gotten a new supervisor at your place that just kind of ruins the vibe for everybody, that's the experience that I was having. And so I said, okay, universe, I hear you. It is time for me to return to the children. Okay, so, but that was 2020, right? It was the end of the 2019-2020 school year. So I'm like, I'm ready to go. And the universe said, not yet, because there were no jobs available. So I decided, instead of focusing on the awfulness that was my job at the time, I'm just going to dream. I'm going to dream about those kids. I'm going to borrow from my future self those feelings of being in my classroom and the smell of the whiteboard markers and how frustrated we all are on our lunchtime, but dang it, we just do it for the children. And so I borrowed from my future self those good feelings, and that was able to get me through. Fast forward. It is now 2021. I'm like, I have dealt with enough. I'm gone. So I'm interviewing at every place that I can find, and I find my new dream job, which is teaching a science that is very close to what I was doing in the lab. So I get to still do the science that I love, and now I get to meet these new kids that I love too. And, I think about how am I actually going to use this degree that I've paid way too much money for. And my hiring principal, all the teachers are talking about, kids are coming back and they're dealing with a lot of trauma. It's hard for them to be back in building. It's weird. For a lot of them, the last year that they had in totality was 7th grade. So they need extra love. They need extra support. And I'm like, that's me. Check mark. I'm your person. So I try to put this into practice every day. I had a student who was having a really bad day. She walked in and I noticed that she was just a little dimmer than she usually is. I walked over to her table. Hey, how you doing? Miss Morales, I'm just having a really bad day. Well, okay. I can tell your energy's just a little bit lower, but I want to speak some positivity into you. Okay. I said, you are a warrior woman. And anything you put your mind to, you can accomplish because you are a powerful and capable being. And I want you to know that. Okay, Miss Morales. I was like, all right. And so I just kind of fluttered away. But, when you think about resilience and you think about those tough times, I really hope that the thing that gets you through is you can envision yourself past it, right? You borrow from your future self that feeling of accomplishment, that feeling that feels so good, and that you can maybe show other folks how to borrow from their from their future selves, and let them know that they are warrior people and capable of anything. Thank you.
Please, again, for Alicia Morales. I'm going to tell you, if Alicia Morales comes up to me and tells me that I'm a warrior woman, I'm believing it. Alex Sidlecki, you're next. Have a seat on the stage. How many of you have ever dealt with the imposter syndrome? Can you relate? I remember when I first started as a reporter, I went to a conference and I was working for a little newspaper, about the same size as the Kitsap Sun, you might have heard of it. And I went to this conference and there were reporters from big papers and little papers, all there giving classes, and there was a guy there from the Washington Post. And the Washington Post was kind of like the New York Yankees to me in newspaper terms. I'm a baseball fan. Okay, maybe not the Yankees. Maybe the New York Times is the Yankees. They were not too far from the Boston Red Sox, which is Doug Avery's favorite team. The Red Sox and my team, the Dodgers, are still in the playoffs, by the way, in case you're scoring at home. The Red Sox are there in some part because of two former Dodgers named Kike and Doogie. And the Dodgers are in the playoffs in large part because of a former Red Sox named Mookie. So we're in equal company. All right. So, Alex is ready. Let me read these. What does hope mean to you? Hope means recognizing what isn't working and believing that it can be changed. My hope is that I can get through the whole thing without running over. Volume. Hope means life. That if I'm still breathing, still thinking, imagining, loving, that my story isn't over and the ending has yet to be written. A happy ending is in the works. And there's a peace sign, a love sign, and a happy face. Nice. What does hope mean to you? Watching my neurotic cat walk in front of my seat at the couch. Will she jump into my lap? Please welcome Alex Sidlecki.
So I am also a teacher, and as soon as Alicia went out, I was like, I'm going to go after her. It's going to be teacher after teacher, and Steve did me dirty real hard with that. But no matter what, I was that Star Wars comment about hope that you guys already liked, so you at least already liked that. So, resiliency. I was homeschooled forever. I went to a high school for homeschoolers in 9th grade. And like it was a giant kind of culture shock. I had never written a paper before, and that was like one of the first things we did. I was like, no, my mom taught me everything, and she made me write letters to people sometimes. Like that was all the writing experience I had. So it took a lot of resiliency to get into writing and storytelling and anything like that. It took a really, really long time. And then I went to this school and I realized I love school. There's positive reinforcement. There's people actually helping me through everything. I'm not confused. I'm not just like working out of a workbook by myself all the time, which wasn't that bad because I usually did it at night in my bedroom. I watched Nick at night. I stayed up really late while I did it. And then the next day I just slept on the dining room floor. And if I heard my mom's footsteps, I hopped up real quick and got to the table and pretended like I was working. So, I got to set my own schedule, which is nice. So, then I went to this high school for homeschoolers and I took every single class I took, all the time. And then I started running START, which if you live in the area, you probably know. You can start college, your junior year of high school. And the first 2 years are free, and you can get your associate's degree for free, and that's a great freaking deal, especially like when you don't have money. So I did that while I was in high school, and I literally had to stop taking classes because otherwise I would have graduated early, and then there's no more free college. So I held off just on current world problems in Washington state history until my senior year. I contemplated graduating early because I really, really, really did not want to be in my home anymore, and college would have been a very pleasant escape, but a pleasant escape you can't afford is not always an option. So I stuck it out, and then I went to college. I thought, I'm on my own, this is going to be a dream come true, this is going to be fantastic, and it wasn't. I was homeschooled forever. I'd known the same people my whole life. I had always had my family there, and the devil you know is always better than the devil you don't know. I knew no one. I knew nothing. It was just me, all the time, by myself, just thinking about myself with literally no distractions. If you wanted cable or anything, you had to pay for it. So there wasn't even like television. This was before streaming existed, because that's the age I fall into. So after the first quarter, I wanted to drop out. I wanted to quit very, very badly. And there was no real support network to tell me not to. I persisted. I was like, okay, I gotta give another quarter, at least. I did one quarter, I have to go back at least for one more, to see what happens. And then maybe that's it. And we hung out all the time. Every day, all day. I went into education, but teaching people were not my people for some reason. Like, I made no friends in the ed department. I found out, like, weird musicians are my people. So I went to Central, which is full of weird musicians. So that is who I hung out with. That is who I partied with. Those were my people. I found out my thinking's a little bit divergent, and I think that aligns with musicians a little bit more. I finished college, I got my degree in education at the worst possible time when the housing market crashed and the world went under and no one was retiring. So then I need more resiliency there. And I substitute taught, I had like 5 jobs at once. I substitute taught forever. I worked at Boys and Girls Club. I tutored, eventually I worked at a preschool, and then I found this teacher who I loved, and I loved her class. And she was a kindergarten teacher, and she also loved me, which was a good match. And so I became her preferred sub, which was great because then when anyone else in the building would try to request me on a day that she was taking off, she would like go to their room and like be like, no, that's mine. I found him. He's mine. You don't get to take him. You can cancel that. He comes to my room. That made me feel really good. And then eventually a position opened up there on the kindergarten team. And that was my first real full-time elementary school teaching job. And I got to teach alongside her, and I got to see all of the amazing things she does every day, and I got to grow from her. And it was amazing. Until it wasn't. It's kind of hard and it's hard. And people don't say that, but like, it is hard. It was half day all the time for a reason, because those little babies are not meant to be in a school setting for 7 hours straight. They go crazy, they throw chairs, they physically attack you. People are always like, oh, you teach kindergarten, that's so cute. And it's like, you come volunteer for a day and then you tell me how cute it is. So then I went to first grade, and I'd been at this, my principal started the same year I started, so we'd been there the whole time together, and he got to know me, and he got to know that I'm good with people who struggle with resiliency, and I'm good with children who are horribly violent and abusive, and like, they're just my jam, because they're weirdos, and I get it, and it frustrates me to no end, but I also get it. I understand it. Like, it's like a bad abusive relationship where it's like, I need a break from you for like 5 minutes and then like, I can come and help you, but like, don't talk to me for a minute. Just like, you go over there, I will talk to you when I am ready. And then we come together. So, I always have students kind of like, this kid's really struggling with their teacher, and they're like really violent and abusive and defiant. So we're just gonna take them out of that classroom and we're just gonna shove them into yours. I hope that's fine. Which is frustrating, but it's been fairly successful. So that's good. So I always end up with like the biggest group of just weirdos that I love. This year is no exception. Obviously, COVID has thrown everything off kilter. None of my students have had a normal year. None of them have even ever been in a class full time. You know, last year, my students were 4 days a week for 2.5 hours. So 5 days a week for like 7 hours is a big jump. And multiple of them were only ever online. Also to the parents out there, I know sometimes you think you're helping your kids, but when you do everything for them, it's not helping them. So I literally have kids that just sit there like this. I can't find my pencil. Did you look in your desk? I don't see it. You might have to physically move your body. I can't find it. I can't find it. So it's been a lot. It's been a year. Our school also has something called social communication, which is kids that literally have social issues and issues communicating, and most of them are in my class. So I have 4 students with autism. I have like 4 students that only speak Spanish, which I don't speak. And like, we'll even read little books together. That's just part of our curriculum, where they have Spanish words and like, ¿Dónde está? Like, it's very, very, very bad broken English, and they just giggle at me. And it's fine. But now I get to be that person that is there for students to inspire them to love school and want to be in school, and it's all because of resilience, and I can pass that resilience along to them. And I love it, and then at the next year, we just do it all over again from the baseline.
Alex Sidlecki, everyone. I was unaware that that teachers fought over substitutes. That's pretty sweet. They probably fight over the ones they don't want to. Okay. Bridget Young, you're next. I was talking about imposter syndrome before, and I got sidetracked by baseball, which is not unusual for me. The reporter from the Washington Post, who I thought was from the major leagues, and I'm working for this little minor league paper, said, sometimes I think they're just going to figure me out, they're going to make me come pack up my stuff and leave. In other words, he was feeling the imposter syndrome. And this was what gave me hope, because I was like, if this guy, who has reached the pinnacle of the game, feels imposter syndrome, I don't feel bad about what I'm feeling either. So it's good to vocalize it. All right. What does hope mean to you? Believing that another good day will come. What does hope mean to you? Sometimes you just have to wait patiently and believe, hope, that a synchronicity will appear and lead you forward. Stay aware. I bet we've got a lot of us have stories about that. Things that fell in our laps. What does hope mean to you? That everything is going to be okay? What does hope mean to you? Hope is compassion. Hope means a future for me and you. Thank you for all of this. Please welcome Bridget Young.
A few Christmases ago, my husband gave me a pair of hiking boots. And in the box was a note that said, I know you've always wanted to climb Mount Rainier. And here are the hiking boots that you can do it in. And I have a really good friend who's an ATF agent named Dave, and also a mountaineer, and he can take you up on it. He can take you up for the climb. So cool, great, thanks, I'm so excited. And I meet Dave. He tells me he's this really nice guy. Dave is a really nice guy. And Dave tells me that, we're gonna do a practice hike before we go up, and that it's gonna be it's not gonna be that hard, but as we get closer to the hike, he says, I really don't recommend Mount Rainier. It's kind of a cattle call. I actually would prefer that we hiked Mount Constance. It's just it's cooler. I have a really great route I like to do, and I know nothing. I'm the kind of hiker who, I have a day pack that's like Fjellraven, and it's, stylish that you're wearing in the city, and I, pack a granola bar. This is the kind of hikes that I've gone on up until this point. And as the hike approaches and we're getting ready for our one and only training hike, I go on a date with my husband and Dave to talk about making plans, and this other Dave comes along. So this Dave, the first Dave is ATF Dave, and then this other Dave I will call Eagle Scout Dave. So Eagle Scout Dave also is like a mountaineer and does search and rescue, and these two Daves are as different as you can possibly imagine. ATF Dave is sort of like Grizzly Adams, Clint Eastwood guy. And this other Dave, Eagle Scout Dave, is it's like they're the odd couple. He's super anal retentive and very detail oriented, and which turns out to be a very good thing. And so as we're getting closer to my training hike and the subsequent climbing Mount Constance, Eagle Scout Dave is telling me, okay, well, there's a few things that you need. You need some supplies, and he gives me a list. And one of the things that he mentions is like, you want to get a climbing harness, and you're going to need a helmet, a lightweight helmet, and a bivy sack, which is like some weird like waterproof cocoon that you stick yourself in at night. And I go to REI with this list, and I'm buying this stuff, and I'm like, this is really expensive. Like, thanks for the boots, honey, but like the rest of this stuff is really pricey. And I'm at REI shopping for all this stuff, and people are asking me like, where are you climbing? Where are you going? And I'm like, oh, Mount Constance. And they're like, oh, so you climb a lot? And I'm like, no. What do I need to know? And then Dave also, Eagle Scout Dave tells me that I need to go to a climbing gym, and I need to practice belaying. And I have no idea what this is, but I'm really busy and overscheduled all the time. And so I this is another thing on my list, go to the climbing gym and learn how to belay. And I sign up for this 30-minute class with some guide, and I get there, and there's a climbing wall, and belaying is like you get this harness on, and then there's these clips that you clip into, and the whole idea is you belay because if something happens and you slip, you only fall 10 feet. So maim yourself, but you don't get, die. Just maiming, not dying. So I go to the climbing gym, and I do this practice climbing, and the guy's like, actually you're doing pretty well. And for a middle-aged mom of 3, and he says, you're doing pretty well. A lot of people can't, you're doing some difficult routes right off the bat. So I'm feeling like, you got this down. Check me out. And then I do my practice hike with ATF Dave, and I think I have a 30-pound pack on, and it's the first time I've ever been in an alpine wilderness, and it's a beautiful day. It's very hard work. It's gorgeous up there, and I'm getting excited. Like, oh, this is going to be really cool. I'm super excited about this. And and I can belay. Yeah, I got this down. So that. Like Friday, my husband, meanwhile, was supposed to come with us and stay at base camp and be like support husband, but our kid had a soccer game, so he's like, oh, so sorry, can't do Mount Constance with you, so have fun with Dave's. And so at 6:30 in the morning on that Friday, I meet them at the designated spot, and I've got like this 45-pound pack. I tried to be uber prepared, like with all my food and everything, and all the gear, and it's gorgeous. So we're like hiking along this pretty level trail for a while. It's like 2.5 hour, like pretty level trail, kind of an incline, not so bad. And it's alongside this river, and ATF Dave lets me know, like super important that you know this, that like, if you get lost or something, or we get separated, or someone gets injured, that you really, all you really need to do is, if you get lost, you just find the river and follow the river. Which to me sounds like a film, like a bad film, Follow the River. It's like a bad preview. Like 3 people after an adventure, hiking into the wilderness. Only one comes back. Follow the river. Coming to theaters near you. So I'm having these thoughts, and like 2.5 hours in, steady, not too bad. Then Dave's like, okay, and this is where we turn off the trail, and we do my secret squirrel route up the south face of Mount Constance, because there's this really cool plane wreck on the side of the mountain, and I really want to see it because I'm an ATF dude. And I'm like, well, how, is there no trail? No, it's awesome. I've like notched trees, and I have little like marks on things. Like I have stapled pieces of tape to things. And okay, I'm not kidding you. Hours of like, okay, I grew up in Kitsap County. I know what, like, I felt like I was in the jungle. We were like over trees and bouldering, and words I have never used before, and climbing scree slopes, and I am burning 500 calories a minute, and yet I don't want to say anything, because this is supposed to be my Christmas present. Merry Christmas. And I want to be like, okay, cool, we're going to get up to the campground, and ATF Dave keeps telling us that, like, we're almost there. Yeah, it's just like 50 more feet, we're almost there. Well, almost there is like, to the next spot where there's another almost there. It's like, we're at the top of this incline, and now we're getting ready to do the next incline, and it's getting steeper and steeper and more serious, and I'm like, I'm in a North Face ad. For real. I am like, there are real drop-offs, and I am exhausted, and I am like trying to keep my act together and try not to be whiny, but I really am. I'm at this point where I'm thinking like, I did not realize that this is what I had signed up for. I really didn't actually sign up for this. But I can't exactly be like, I'm sorry, but I just can't do this anymore. Can I call Uber? So I keep like struggling. Meanwhile, thank God, Eagle Scout Dave had climbing poles, and he lent me one. Because we're like scrambling along with my one hiking pole, and we get to this big scree slope, and we start to climb it, and the ground starts to give out from under me. And I am slipping, and I'm like, it's sliding. I'm on a hill that's sliding away from the two Daves. And ATF Dave says, hand me your pole. And I hand him my pole, and he goes, don't let go. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm trying, I look like a cartoon character. My legs are like, beep, 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 beep. I'm like trying to like get some grip, and I'm like scrambling, and I'm exhausting myself, and I'm like, I stop, and I hang there for a minute. I hang there, and I'm like, okay, Bridge, calm down. Okay, collect yourself. And then I start like swinging. Okay, swinging. And then I swing myself over the edge. No points for style. But I make it over the side. And then I step in exactly the same place that ATF Dave walks in after that. Like, he takes a step and I do exactly what he does. And we finally get to this high point, and he's like, oh yeah, we're here at Camp 1. And I'm like, oh my God. He goes, well, we're not camping here. This is, I don't like Camp 1, I like Camp 2. So then we continue, and I mean, I'm not exaggerating. We're way, way up there, and there are steep drops, and we're looking at mountain goats, and I'm like, wow, this is not the Kitsap Mall. And we finally get to Camp 2, which is a little wedge of stone that has like a major drop-off on 3 sides. And it has a little rock outcropping where ATF Dave stores firewood, because he loves coming here, and he stores firewood there, and he has some provisions, because he's insane. And we make camp there, and once again, God bless Eagle Scout Dave, because it starts to rain. And I'm like, we're just out on this rock outcropping. I'm like, and where do you pee? And there's a World War II plane crash site nearby. I'm like, okay, I'm feeling real comfortable. And, you know, I'm just paranoid. And then it starts to dump. And Eagle Scout Dave pulls out this tarp. And, you know, it's like those moments where you're just so glad for small comforts like whiskey. And so we're like set up camp, and I'm, you know, in my little bivy sack, and I've had a couple shots of whiskey, and we actually ate steak because that's what ATF brought. ATF Dave brought steak, and grilled it with his like little stash of firewood. And I go to bed, and we're soaking wet. But they're like, don't worry, you dry off. like in the divvy sock. When you go to bed, you dry off by morning. I'm like, great. And I'm falling asleep, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure my husband is trying to kill me. I'm going to look into any new life insurance policies when I get back home. And I sleep pretty well. And I wake up the next morning, and we got to get a bright and early start, and we get our coffee, and we start hiking up this huge, big slope, and ATF Dave gets up. He gets up there first, and he is super excited. He's like, "It's amazing up here. You're gonna love it. It's incredible. It's beautiful up here." And then, Eagle Scout Dave gets up there next. He's like, "Oh, Bridge, this is incredible up here. You're gonna love it." And I'm thinking the sound of music, where like that open field, like the hills are alive. It's good. Like I'm imagining some incredible vista. And we get up to the top. I get up to the top, and it is exactly the same thing on the other side. It's a saddle. So it's a cliff on the other side. And I am like, and I'm not normally afraid of heights, but this is like your whole body is like, no, bad idea. And there's this saddle of like land that we're supposed to like shimmy across, and there is the rock face that we have to climb. And the Daves say, "Bridge, normally we would like totally free climb this, but because we're with you, I want to be safe, we're gonna totally we'll rope up." I'm like, and I've got my helmet on and my little belay harness. And ATF Dave climbs up this rock face, and he's putting little thingies in the rocks to hook the clips to, that the rope goes through. I've not complained once up until now, I just want you to know this. And Eagle Scout Dave goes, he must have seen some look on my face, and he's like, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Okay, I'm gonna be honest. I know this is gonna sound childish, but I would like to climb into your backpack and not come out." Follow the river. So ATF Dave is up at the top. I mean, also this dude looks like Grizzly Adams. He's got the beard and he's totally burly, and they've got these straps hanging everywhere in their backpacks. Both these guys are so uber jocks, and I'm just feeling like one of these things is not like the other. So ATF Dave is up at the top, and he's like, "Bridge, you're ready. We're ready. You can go ahead and climb." And he's like, "Don't worry about it. You did a 5.8 at the climbing gym. This is like a 5.4. It's just like the climbing gym." No, it is not like the climbing gym, because there is this thing called exposure. And not only are you at the top of this big incline, but you look out and you see Whidbey Island and Canada and Russia. I could see Russia. It is so high up, and that exposure, it just makes you feel like you're on the very tip of the Eiffel Tower, like this, no! So, I clip in, and I climb that rock face like a monkey with my tail on fire. I think I broke a world record. I climbed that rock face so fast. And when I got to the top, I was like, ah! They're like, we're good. They didn't say fur girl, to their credit. Then we get to the very top, and we're looking up at the summit, and that's another couple of hours, and that's an ice slope, and blah-bitty-blah, and they're like, darn it, it's kind of socked in. I don't know, it doesn't look safe, I don't know if we should actually risk it. It's kind of really the visibility isn't good, and I'm like, thank you, baby Jesus. I mean, I'm usually a very goal-oriented person. I was so happy in that moment. The hills are alive. So, of course, it still takes a lot getting down. So it takes almost the entire rest of the day just to get back to Base Camp 2, where we sleep, and wake up the next day. And I will tell you, you think that going down is easier than going up? No. And when we finally, after hours and hours and hours of scrambling through everything that we had to climb up, when we get back to that trail, I do get on my hands and knees and kiss the ground. And then we go to Quilcene, and I order a hamburger. Best hamburger I have ever eaten in my life. And then I get home, and I take my clothes off to take a shower, and gravel falls out of my sports bra. And I'm standing in the mirror, and I'm looking at myself, and normally, I'm seeing all the imperfections. And this time I look at myself and I see someone strong. And I think to myself, I climbed a mountain and I feel so beautiful.
Bridget Young, everyone. So I know Bridget has told stories before, but she has never told one for us. This was her first time at Story Night, so I think awesome. Now you guys look great, so before I do the next thing, I want to take your picture. They fixed Facebook, so I got somewhere to put this. Now a selfie. Okay. Hey, we're going to take a little break. Take about 10-15 minutes. When you start hearing music from Hamilton, come back to your seat, get some refreshments, go to the bathroom. We'll be back in about 10-15 minutes. And change, never giving up. And with that, please welcome Jose Castro.
Castro, Fidel, you know that. Hello everybody, good evening. I am Jose Castro. I am also the Adult Services Librarian at Kitsap Regional Library, Sylvan Way. Steve, I know that we're not supposed to have notes, but I have a few because my mind can go wild. So,
I can't keep you off.
So if you go to Latin America and you mention the word resiliencia, maybe people will give you maybe like a side, and they will say, "Why are you mentioning resiliencia? Like, do you know what really resiliencia means? You know that resiliencia has been like mistaught and misused during the past 30 years here in Latin America." And yeah, it makes sense. It depends on who teach the tools to build resiliency among the people. But it can have another connotation. But also it has been a word that has been chasing me my entire life. Maybe if you go to Latin America, again, they will say, do not say resiliencia, maybe say resistencia. You have to be resistente, resiste. And that reminds me of a story, like, I was on an excursion in Venezuela to like Tepuy, Paratemuy, that's near the border in Brazil, and the east coast in Venezuela. And then on my third day, I was started to have like a lot of chills. I was feeling so bad that I could not be more resilient, and I told the excursion guy, "Hey, I'm not feeling well. I have like a super fever." And they tell me, "Okay, if you're not good to walk, just stay here. A medic will see you soon." 2 days passed, and no medic was there for me. And then I started to feel like my skin with a lot of like pink dots all around my body, and I was like, I'm not feeling well. I was like, maybe with some stash of paracetamol, which is acetaminophen, and I was surviving with that for maybe 4 days. And then I was like in chills, and then one of my excursion friends told me, resiste, tienes que ser resistente, resiste. So I resisted one more day, and then the medic came, and he was like, oh, it looks like you have dengue. And dengue is like, you know what is dengue? Okay. So you have dengue, so you have to resistir 2 more days. It will eventually go away, drink some lots of water, and they gave me a prescription. So resistí, y I was fine. But it wasn't the first time I needed to use like resistencia. When I was in that same trip, I remember going back on my way home, I was like, well, I missed this hike because I missed the hike. And I needed to resist like around like maybe 10 days in a place that I didn't saw people for maybe 4 days kind of, because the excursion went ahead of me, and I was like maybe completely alone with maybe 2 or 3 people in the village that I was staying at. So I resisted a lot. I resisted my thoughts of like walk away and try to reach a town, because I was super desperate after being like nearly 10 days with that dengue. But also back in Puerto Rico, I needed to resist like maybe 3 or 4 years of a university career where I needed to have like 2 or 3 jobs to sustain myself. So it's all about resistir, resiliencia. And then I remember when the library came up with Resiliency as the topic of one of the main topics. And I remember I was in the meeting, I was like, wow, so now we are going to teach Resiliency to the people. We are going to like embrace or have all the system talk about Resiliency, which is good and it's fine. Because we all need to be resistant. Todos tenemos que resistir. We need to, in this special time, be resistant. And now COVID happened, and then they asked us to use the mask because we need to be resilientes. We need to resist. So my point is that maybe we as persons, we don't understand like vaccines efforts, we don't understand masking, but it's the only way that we have now to be resistentes, to be resilient on all this happening. It's just like a small sacrifice, because at the end, I was resistant, I stayed 10 days, I survived the dengue in the middle of Brazil and Venezuela, and here I am in the United States being resistant again. So I am not ashamed of using my mask everywhere, I'm not ashamed of saying that, okay, I need to do a sacrifice, I need to be resistant, I need to build my resistance. So maybe that was not, this is not like a story, but it's a call out to everybody who is thinking that maybe these little efforts are not doing an impact in our community, but it really is doing an impact in our communities. COVID is going down little by little because all of us have been resistant, all of us have been resistentes. So resistamos, let's wait for some more years and let's look the future with hope. Thank you.
You did it before I asked you to. Another round of applause. Our next storyteller is Alicia Morales. So real quick, and I don't have any hope cards this time, but I lived in South America, and he was saying there's a difference between resilience and resiliencia. And it sounds like it's contextual. It's a different context. There's a legend down in South American countries of religious people, American religious people, misusing the word, not knowing how to say embarrassed in Spanish. So they say, I'm pregnant. They say embarazado, I'm pregnant. And the legend is that this young girl had been asked to speak by this religious leader who was a bishop. And she got up and said, I'm pregnant, it's all the bishop's fault. That's my contribution to hope and resilience tonight. I'm sure she had to exercise some after that. Please welcome Alicia Morales.
Oh, 6 years ago, on a November night, in the emergency room of a hospital that doesn't exist anymore, I watched the digital clock on the wall roll over from 12:59:59 to a bunch of zeros, and it was Friday the 13th. And a doctor came in and told me that I had diverticulitis, a respiratory infection, type 2 diabetes, and lung cancer. Well, the cancer shouldn't have been a surprise. I hadn't smoked for over 25 years, but essentially I'd started smoking the day I was born into a family of heavy smokers. So, more CAT scans and a PET scan, and yes, there was a tumor in the top lobe of my right lung and another one in the middle lobe, and I would be having surgery. In the meantime, I tried to take better care of my health. I got more exercise. I went on a very stringent diet that consisted almost entirely of beans and salad. And my heroic husband, Ian, joined me in that diet, although he said, only the fact that you're a good cook makes this even remotely possible. And we both lost a lot of weight, and I was doing 5K walks. I don't run. So by the time it got close to the date of surgery, I was in better health than I'd been in a long time. And I wasn't afraid. Ian was afraid. My sister Alex, who came to stay with us to help during my recovery, she was scared, but not me. The one thing I did was I stopped writing for a while the feminist paranormal romance ebooks and returned to this big weird book that I'd been wrestling with since 2002 about my late bipolar mother and our complicated relationship and how I was processing her life and death. And then it was time for surgery. I remember saying to Ian, yeah, I'm glad I got back to work on this book because if I died and it wasn't finished, I would feel really stupid. And I didn't die. I recovered slowly. I lost more weight in the process until I actually looked bony. Ian said, I didn't realize that your shoulder blades were so sharp. They were for a while. And so I got back to doing the 5K walks, and I started swimming again as soon as they let me. And I even entered a half-mile open water swim race with 2/3 of a lung missing. I came in last, but so what? I did it. And the CAT scans kept coming back normal. They were less and less frequent. And after a while, I got lazy, and I wasn't exercising as much. I relaxed the diet. I started eating my favorite foods again. My daughter gave me this dish towel that shows a very dapper devil sitting on a stone wall in a Mediterranean-looking landscape, saying, "Hey, have you tried cheese?" I tried cheese. I put the weight back on. Not quite all of it, but some of it. But the CAT scans were still fine until one day they weren't. Summer of last year, there was an iffy patch on my left lung, the good lung. And it didn't seem to be doing much, so we waited a couple months and had another CAT scan, and it was still there, maybe a little bit larger. And then another scan, and then a biopsy. And the biopsy was so inconclusive that they sent some of the tissue to the Mayo Clinic. And the results came back, and it was some kind of cancer, some very atypical kind of cancer, which made perfect sense to me. Very slow growing, but I did have radiation treatments in February. They slowed me down quite a lot. It was fascinating preparation for it. I still have this art project I'm going to finish of this mesh plate they molded to my form that latched onto the exam table to keep me from heaving my chest around too much when I breathe. I've started sewing buttons and beads on it, and someday I'm going to cover it with buttons and beads because, you know, it was mine. They gave it to me when I left. Eventually, I got my energy back. I went back to work on my big book. I also wrote some fluff, but I've been working really hard on that big book. And the thing is, I have a new doctor now. I don't know what happens next. She's sending some of that biopsy tissue off for a different round of tests. Says maybe if it's the right kind of cancer, there's an oral treatment that you can take, or not. Maybe I should be scared, but somehow I'm just not. I don't seem to know how to be scared. I am 73 years old. I know I'm not going to live forever. I say that frequently lately to my loved ones to remind myself that I'm not going to live forever. I've always thought I'd die somewhere around age 84 for astrological reasons that are too much trouble to explain except to another astrologer. But it could be much sooner. But I'm still not scared. I do know this, I'm lucky. I've had an amazing life. I've done nothing all that noteworthy, but I've known the whole range of human emotion, the whole range of love, from friendships to children and grandchildren and an ever-deepening marriage. I've been an artist and a writer. I've also scrubbed floors. I've traveled. If I were to die tomorrow, I would know that I had plenty of life. I don't think there's anything important that I missed out on. And I did finish the book.
So I mentioned that we started in October of 2014. I should read this first so that our next storyteller has time to come up on stage. Kim Weaver. So we started this in October of 2014, as I've mentioned 3 times now. And our next one was in December. And Allison was the first storyteller that night. It was the first event. She'd never gone to one, and she got called up first. And she won. A lot of times we judge. I know that you're judging privately, but we do it officially. And she won that night with the story about the Xanax Club. It's a story I remember to this day. And we have a podcast at storynight.org. It hasn't been active lately, and I'm still figuring out what to do with that. But if you go back to one of our very earliest episodes at storynight.org, you'll find this story called the Xanax Club. And I recommend it. And you've had others that are on the podcast as well. But she's been here almost every month. How many did you miss?
Maybe 3.
Yeah, 3. She had cancer. I guess that's a good excuse. She actually had Ian read something at one of them. So please, one more time, give a round of applause to Alicia. And now someone else who has meant a lot to Story Night, and I'll explain that later. Please welcome Kim Weaver.
I've taken my metaphorical mask off on the Story Night stage many times, but this is the first time I've taken a literal mask off on the Story Night stage. So this story is about my relationship to hope and resilience, and how 2 great American poets have helped me navigate that relationship. So to start at the beginning, I am from a community that is firmly in the quitters never win, winners never quit camp. There is a very high value placed on suffering, and it is almost always better to keep doing something even if you hate it, rather than suffer the social stigma of being labeled weak or a quitter. And this is not like the kinder, gentler, you signed up for it so you have to finish it attitude of like, well, you went out for the volleyball team so you have to play till the end of the season. It's not that. Signing up for volleyball, or anything else for that matter, is kind of like a till death do us part kind of situation. So when 9th grade me went out for the volleyball team, I could not have imagined the relief that 11th grade me would have felt when I was finally and very mercifully cut from the volleyball team. And don't get me wrong, it was still quite shameful to suck at sports as badly as I did. Still shameful, but not as bad as if I would have been labeled a quitter. So that was my early relationship with resilience, which is basically like resilience through fear of shame. It's a real party. Maybe some of you know what I'm talking about. And then I went to college, and I studied the time-honored combination of civil engineering and poetry. And that's where I was introduced to the work of Emily Dickinson, still my favorite poet to this day. And if you know one poem by Emily Dickinson, it's probably this one. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. There are actually 2 more stanzas, look them up. They're pretty good, but like not quite as punchy as that first one. But this came as a complete revelation to me, that your resilience and that your persistence could be fueled by hope and not just by fear of shame. And I just took this on board fully, and I was in a great time of my life when there was a lot of hope for the future. I was the first person in my family to go to college, and there I was doing great. I persisted through the tough times of that. I went to graduate school, got a master's in engineering. That was not a walk in the park, but I did it because I had this idea that if I persisted, things would get easier, there would be a breakthrough, and it would be worth it. Worked as an engineer for a lot of years, also not easy. Did the Peace Corps, which many times I thought about quitting that, but again, I knew my reasons for being there. I had hope that I was making things better, and so that made persisting a lot easier. When I got back from the Peace Corps, I decided to become a high school teacher. And friends, you've heard a little bit about teaching here tonight. So not only was I a first-year teacher, but I was the first teacher in this new program in Philadelphia for recently arrived immigrants to the United States who did not speak any English. This was for newly arrived immigrants and refugees who did not have any English yet. And because it was a new program, I had no lesson plans, no curriculum, no textbooks, and I taught 5 different subjects every single day to these students. And so basically, I was building the plane while I was flying it, and it was a plane full of teenagers who did not speak or understand English. It was a lot. When I say I work day and night, I am not speaking metaphorically. I didn't sleep. I worked all day. I lesson planned. I graded. I was on Google Translate endlessly. I had my 20 students spoke 13 different languages, none of which I spoke. And no matter how many hours in the day I worked, it just was never enough. I still felt like I was terrible at my job. I knew the work mattered. I knew it was important, and I was not going to give up. And so what I did was I just didn't sleep. I didn't sleep for 6 weeks at the start of my teaching career. And one day, about 6 weeks in, I was teaching at the end of the day, and I had a long night of lesson planning and grading ahead of me, and I sneezed. Oh, that was very good timing. Whoever just did that, that was very good timing. It was just like that. I sneezed, and the pain that shot through my left eye was immediate and searing. And tears, I mean, I hoped it was tears and not my actual, eye goo. It was, streaming down my face. And I went to the teacher's classroom next door, and I was like, do I still have an eye? And he was like, yeah, but I think maybe you should go to the eye doctor. So I drove to the eye doctor with one hand over my eye, and it was just, pouring down my face. And I get to the eye doctor, and he takes one look in my eye with that really bright scopy thing, and in a very low, odd tone, he goes, wow. Now I know that the worst thing that you can hear from a doctor is probably oops, but I would like to nominate wow as a really close second. So what this eye doctor said to me is that just every day in the normal course of being a human, you get these tiny little scratches on your cornea, and then every night when you go to bed and you sleep for at least 5 hours a night, those scratches completely heal, and you start the next day with a brand new cornea, and it's great. But if you don't close your eyes for at least 5 hours, those little scratches just accumulate and accumulate and accumulate until one day you're so, I don't know, maybe sneezing or something, and your cornea basically disintegrates like tissue paper in a tornado. And he actually said that phrase. He actually said, like tissue paper in a tornado. And that is what had happened to me. Through sheer force of will and not sleeping for 6 weeks, I had put my health in very serious jeopardy. So, when your doctor tells you oh, lose a few pounds, or you might die a couple of years early, or, exercise more and you'll gain a couple years of life, that's so far down the road that, it's okay, whatever, give me the ice cream. But when your eye doctor's yeah, you need to start sleeping 5 hours a night or you're gonna go blind, it's kind of not optional, but if you have to start sleeping at least 5 hours a night, but you have a job that is impossible to do in the other 19 hours a day, let's just say that that little bird that was singing in my soul kind of went belly up and died on the floor of the cage. And I needed a new poet. I needed a new song. I mean, I needed a new job and 5 hours of sleep a night, let's be real. But in that moment, what I needed was some way to continue, at least for one more day. If you know one song by Kenny Rogers, It's probably this one. You gotta know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em, know when to walk away, know when to run. I've always loved The Gambler because it's a great story song, and clearly I've always loved a good story. But on that day when I was grasping for a new poet, there was Kenny. And Kenny was telling me not only was it okay to quit, sometimes quitting is actually the very smart thing to do. And not only do you need to sometimes walk away, but you need to run. And, you know, I still consider myself a pretty resilient person, stubborn even. I mean, I've been in the housing market for the past 14 months. If that's not an act of resilience, I don't know what is, y'all. And I still like to consider myself to be that persister, but I have gotten better at quitting since that day. And it's kind of a life goal to know when to listen to Emily and her little bird and hope and persist and keep going. So I still have her in one ear, but I got Kenny in the other ear telling me to be alert and know if something isn't good for me, that maybe it's time to walk away. And at the end of the day, I would say that that is also an act of hope. Walking away from something that isn't awesome and that isn't serving you in the hope that there's something better out there, a better job, a better relationship, whatever it is, that is also an act of hope. So with Emily in my left ear and Kenny in my right, I hope to still keep finding my way. Thank you.
So, I keep forgetting. A few years back, was it Melissa Dillon who brought you to story night, Kim, or did you bring her?
I kind of brought myself, yeah.
Okay.
We came together.
Yeah, they showed up together, I think. And Melissa's great. I don't think, she's been back one other time. Kim rarely misses. And not only that, Kim keeps bringing people. So I bet half of you are in Kim Weaver's downline. So a round of applause for Kim Weaver. On a purely selfish note. Nikki Atienza, you're next. Round of applause. The last two stories have reminded me of a poem. Oh no, now it's saying discover a newsletter. I don't need that. This was in The New Yorker in 1988, August 21st. And it was the first poem that ever, other than Roses Are Red, whatever the kids' poems were. Roses are red, violets are blue, I sure wish we knew what to do with you, those kind of things. Other than those kind of poems, I had never been moved by a poem, and for whatever reason, this one did. It's relatively short, it's called Gravy, it's by Raymond Carver. Has anybody heard it before? All right. And it's not about the food, but you think that's why I liked it. But anyway, no other word will do, for that's what it was, gravy. Gravy these past 10 years, alive, sober, working, loving, and being loved by a good woman. 11 years ago, he was told he had 6 months to live at the rate he was going. And he was going nowhere but down. So he changed his ways somehow. He quit drinking. And the rest, after that, was all gravy, every minute of it. Up to and including when he was told about, well, some things that were breaking down and building up inside his head. Don't weep for me, he said to his friends. I'm a lucky man. I've had 10 years longer than I or anyone expected. Pure gravy, and don't forget it. Cool. I broke the rules by using a prop and reading it. It's my gig, so I can do that. respect the rules. Please welcome Nikki Atienza.
Thank you for saying my last name right. It means so much to me. Hi everyone, I'm Nikki. This is my second time doing story night. I did it last month for Labor Day, or Labor was the theme. There we go. And when we were told what the next theme was, I was kind of like wondering what I was going to share. I actually had to look up the definition of resilience because I'm like, oh, what does that mean? And I was telling my mom what I was going to be doing tonight a month ago. And she goes, why don't you talk about your upbringing as a military child? I was like, oh, okay. Resilience, from my gathering of the definition, is how you kind of spring back up and how you get back on your feet. And I asked my mom, I was like, oh, thanks for the inspiration, Mom. Do you want to come tonight and listen to me talk? No. Oh, okay, thanks. Thanks for the encouragement. She goes, well, that's because I was there. I know what happened. She was there for part of it, and I'll explain why. So, grew up in the Navy. I went to 5 elementary schools, 1 middle school, and 3 high schools. Growing up, having to go through that many elementary schools, it was tough being the new kid. So I was excited knowing when my father retired, it was going to be over. I thought it was it. And I was excited. I'm actually proud in some ways that I went to only 1 middle school. Because at that point, I really thought, that part of my life was done. My father has no obligation to the Navy. We're stuck here. We ended up moving here. So I was like, okay, one place. This is the place I'm going to stay forever. I'm going to grow up here. I'm going to go to high school here. Okay, awesome. 2003, I want to say, 2005, so 2 years later after my father retired, he gets orders to Japan, of all places. I used to be heavy into manga, so and a part of me was actually excited, but then the other part's like, wait, why are we moving? I thought this was done. My father's, he was excited to get back out there, to be working for the government. And he told us, we're going to be moving there in a year. I'm like, okay, at least I'm mentally prepared. We're going to move in a year. Oh, I have to go there first. Oh, you're leaving. Okay, I'm like, I remember you leaving, when you had to go to the ship, but you actually had to move to Japan first to kind of scope the area, get used to the surroundings, I guess, and of course start his new job. Understandable. It was my freshman year of high school, and I attended Fairview Junior High, and at the time, it was 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade. From my understanding, it's changed, because now 9th grade is now in the high school level. When I had my 9th grade year, I felt so proud. I was like, yeah, I'm technically a high schooler, but I'm not. I've kind of established my name here. Everyone knows who I am. I can finally go in the freshman courtyard, which was banned from everyone. And 8th graders and 7th graders, once in a while, would try to sneak in. But then the teacher's like, nope, you're not allowed here. So I'm like, I don't have to go through that anymore. My father said, after the school year. I'm like, okay, after the school year. And then about a month of him being there, he said, okay, you guys are gonna move here after the holidays. And it's like, oh man, okay, I guess, at least I get to spend Christmas here with my friends, enjoy a little bit of winter, awesome, okay. I remember we were on our way to an orthodontist appointment, and I was gonna get my colors changed to Halloween colors, because every month I always change it to the theme of the holiday. And it just made me super excited about having braces. Make it fun a little. On the way to that appointment, my mom goes, "You guys gotta get ready. We're leaving next week." I was like, "You have got to be kidding me." I don't really talk about this a whole lot, so just reliving that moment was pretty intense. And one thing I actually don't remember was crying. My mom had mentioned that the day she told it to us, I was in tears because I told her, I finally made friends. I finally know where I belong. Why do we have to leave again? So just imagine, it's hard to imagine knowing that next week, like today's Thursday, knowing next Thursday, you're moving to a different country you don't know much about, except through comic books maybe, or manga, and not knowing the language. That's just mind-blowing. Not enough time to prepare at all. I am the oldest of 3, and so I was going through my emotions, but my sisters took it a different way. They weren't happy, of course, either. We had to, quickly pack all our stuff, had to schedule moving, had to do what we need to do to get ready to leave. When we arrived, it was, it's least to say it was a shit show. My father was excited again because he just saw the opportunity of him going back into the military workforce. Even though he was considered a civilian, he was still working for the military. The fact that he could travel again was very exciting for him. And being able to bring us to see a different side of the world that none of us never thought we would ever go. Which I can understand that now, but for us it was definitely difficult to transition, from our everyday lives to all of a sudden, going to what's considered a private school, a DOD school, again, living in a foreign country, and all going from living in a huge house to one small, tiny apartment. If you folks are not familiar with Japanese culture, a lot of people live in apartments. So, we had to condense a lot. The transition affected us differently. My youngest sister, who was, I think, in 1st grade at the time, kindergarten, 1st grade, she would cry every single day because she could not understand why she wasn't back in Washington. Where are her friends? Where are her teachers? Where is, the playground? Why am I coming to this, new school? I don't get it. And because of that, because of my sister's tantrums, my mom couldn't find a job because she had to take care of my youngest sister. She felt obligated to just calm her down first, before she can really move on. And just the stress of the transition, and my father, saying, no, we gotta, help the girls get used to it. It's like, we're not used to it. My other sister, she wasn't comfortable with it either. It was a struggle for her to make friends. It was already difficult for her to do so to begin with, and then, of course, in a different environment, even more so, especially with it being a little more, it was definitely more complicated, at least the school setup, from my understanding, from what she told me. I don't know a whole lot from her perspective because she doesn't share much to begin with, but I just know that this transition made it even more so for her to close up because it was too much. My father kept saying, we're on a vacation. we are in a foreign country that many people wish they were in, and just think of this as a vacation, your getaway from, your everyday life. What kind of vacation do people go on that they have to go to work and go to school? That's what didn't make sense to me. And I get he was trying to make the most of it, but it was so hard, The stress of it was so much for my sisters and my mom that they ended up going back home. They went back to Washington. That's why I say my mom was there for part of it. So, and I chose to stay because I know my dad was so excited for us to move to Japan that I didn't want, him to feel like it was all for nothing. So my mom was first to go, and then my second sister went after me, followed her. And my youngest sister, actually, as much as she didn't really quite like her new school, she wanted to stay with me because I'm her big sister. But it was unfortunately kind of sad for her because she didn't fully understand why my mom left. So it was really tough. So she stuck with me at least it was a new school year, so she stayed with me till the holiday season. And then went back to mom. For me, on the other hand, while I was scared to move to Japan, my experience was, it was a little bit better only because of the people I ended up meeting while in high school. Because like I mentioned before, I went to 5 different elementary schools, so it was hard being the new kid. And I was scared going to this new school because I wasn't mentally prepared to go into high school. Again, middle school, freshmen were in middle school. So I didn't know that I was jumping into high school. When I went from elementary school to middle school, they had this session of this is what middle school is gonna be like. So I was kind of anticipating the same thing for high school. Nope, I did not. Classes were also a lot difficult compared to my freshman middle school, and more so honors. The level of the classes were a lot stricter over in my new school, and I was just like, oh my god, I would thought I was the smartest kid in my classes back in Fairview compared to everyone else. I was like, oh no, I am the smartest dumb kid here. Okay, got it. So that was difficult, but aside from classes, I was just amazed by how many people actually understood where I was coming from. I realized I never went to a school where there were that many military kids like me. So in those elementary schools, those kids did not understand, having to transition, having to move, in the middle of the school year. Whereas my peers, they welcomed me with open arms, despite the honors classes, but what was so fascinating to me was at the beginning of the school year, people seem to want to know who the new kids are. Because they're like, oh my gosh, you're new? Let me become friends with you because I know it's so hard for you to socialize at this point in time. I know it's hard for you because you're in a brand new environment and you don't know who to talk to, or if you want to talk to anyone, let me talk to you first. Do you want to sit with me here at lunch? Yeah, go right ahead, that's totally fine. Actually, let me sit with you, I'm like, wow, that's awesome. I didn't know people like that existed. So my experience transitioning was, again, a little different from my sisters. And I was so excited knowing that I was welcomed and people understood where I was coming from. And I actually met people who had the same interests as me. Up until that point, I feel like I had to change my interests just to at least be accepted. Yes, I was the smartest kid in some of my classes, but there are some points where I felt like I had to dumb myself down just to get people to talk to me. You know, people actually liked that I was into the arts, into drama, you know, into books, you know, just being a nerd. That excited me. So, you know, and I was so happy that I found them, because it made my experience, not just in high school, but just living in Japan, so much easier. Just in that moment alone, not only did I meet the people that I needed at the moment in my life, moving there made me realize, as much as I don't like what's happening, I gotta just make the best of it. Because like my dad said, not many people get this opportunity. And so I got the experience to roam around the streets of Japan with my friends, take the train to Tokyo, take, photo booth pictures where you get to edit them, and like stickers where you take the pictures and you cut up the pictures and you distribute it to people. It's a lot. I don't know if anyone's been to a Japanese photo booth, but instead of like the long strips, you get like various photos, different sizes, and then it was just fun decorating them. And then sharing that experience with other people who didn't know, they're like, what are we doing? I don't understand what this thing is saying, but yeah, let's do it. Are going to karaoke karaoke places. I actually loved karaoke because of Japan. So in a karaoke place in Japan, you're actually renting out a room, and you're just singing along with the people around you. You're not singing in front of strangers. So that was pretty awesome, knowing that, that was a thing. Having the freedom to, just explore. If anyone has been to Yokosuka, that's where my family got stationed, you may end up taking like this intro class, like this is what, like Japanese culture is 101. One of the things they handed out to us was like a business card. And on one side, it was all in Japanese, and then translated was, I am lost. Can you please take me back to Yokosuka Naval Base? And I just felt so secure holding on to this thing, okay? I was just like, this is awesome. I could get lost and some little old lady will take me back home. This is great. You can't really say that back in, America, because you can't go up to a stranger and do that. No, that's not good. Yeah, it's just like the security I felt. Like, it's actually because of that I have developed a habit of just exploring on my own. And people have warned me, you're not in Japan, you can't do that here. But I'm like, but for me, it's like, it gave me that independence, too. So, and I also love walking around everywhere. Whenever I say to people, oh yeah, it's only like a short walk. To me, a short walk is a half an hour. To some people, it's just like, half an hour? I'm sorry, my bad. I just got so used to it over there. Also, because of that experience and understanding that you just got to make the most of it, I'm the event planner in like my little friend group. Like the moment I find out like something is happening, I'm like, guys, we gotta go do this. We got this right now. This sounds super exciting. And they're like, I have a thing, or not really a thing, where I just have so much energy, so much excitement for this thing. I have to remind myself, okay, not everyone is as excited for me, as excited as I am to do something almost twice a week. Going to story night, and then maybe going out to the bar on Saturday, and then the following weekend, maybe going on a hike, and then the next weekend, so on and so forth. Just living life. So, and I do apologize to my friends that if I am very exhausting for them because of that. So, but it's because of them that I felt, I had to live in the moment. So when my time in Japan was over, my father actually got orders to Italy. I ended up graduating there in Naples. Forza Napoli, that was the same we had. Go Naples. When my father said, hey, I got orders to Italy, are you going to be okay with that? I was like, let's go. Let's do it. Because if Japan was just as exciting, what would Italy offer? And then when I went, because he got the orders in the middle of my 10th grade year, I did have to come back to Washington. And when I came back, I luckily got to reconnect with my friends from middle school. And apparently I was a celebrity because a lot of them were like, you lived in Japan. You actually you went to the places we read about in manga or the places we see in anime. And I was like, to be honest, I actually stopped reading manga and I stopped watching anime because why would I put my nose in a book when I could be there out in the moment, living out there, going to Tokyo, going to Kyoto. And I just thought it was kind of awesome. Everybody's like, oh, you were there. And I'm like, oh, thanks, I was. Yes. And, when I had to explain this to my sisters, I'm like, I know it's going to be hard, but just be open-minded, when we go there, they are also brand new kids too, and they understand. They get, you're new, and they want you to feel welcomed. My little sister actually preferred living overseas afterwards. At one point when she had to come back here, she was like, I can't stand it. She actually did go to Fairview for a month or two. She's like, I can't do it. I need to go back. I need to go back overseas. And I'm like, okay, I'm glad you enjoyed it. And then, we ended up it's because of the welcomingness of the military child community that we were able to feel more open. And it made a huge difference for us. And those friends that welcomed me, when I moved to Japan are actually sitting in the audience right now. And it's been about 15 years. So that to me speaks volumes and how powerful our friendships have been. Even though we ended up departing, living our lives, the fact that we were able to still reconnect and still, have this strong relationship today means so much to me. So that's my story.
Another round of applause for I asked you to stay up here. Can I have all the storytellers come up on stage? We're going to get a photo for one thing. But also, let's take another look at these beautiful people. I'm going to lead from the side here for a minute. Okay, now, give us a yes, give a round of applause for the storytellers. Also, I I didn't grow up in a military community. I grew up in Southern California, in an LA suburb, and I was surrounded by World War II and Korea War veterans who never spoke of their war experience. So I had no knowledge of what it's like to be in a military community and to know what military families go through. And it's through hearing Nikki's story and others that I've gained a greater appreciation for that life experience. And the same goes for everything I've heard tonight. One of the things I want to, let me mention something first. So, a woman named Frances Haugen, she's a whistleblower at Facebook. She's been in the news a lot this week. She testified before Congress about things like algorithms and how Facebook, and I don't want to single out Facebook because I'm sure they're not the lone player in this, but they are reluctant to do things that would tone down the anger because then people wouldn't stay as long and they wouldn't click on more things. She was interviewed on 60 Minutes. On Sunday, and Scott Pelley, the interviewer, said, "Misinformation, angry content is enticing to people." She said, "It is very enticing." Scott Pelley said, "and keeps them on the platform." Yes, Facebook has realized that if they change the algorithm to be safer, people will spend less time on the site. They'll click on less ads, they'll make less money. 16 years earlier, Facebook didn't exist. Well, maybe it did on college campuses or rape women on the campus or whatever, but in its early days, it was talk radio that was doing this, and it was a writer, David Foster Wallace, who wrote a piece in The Atlantic about talk radio. And he said, as is standard operating procedure in political talk radio, the emotions most readily accessed are anger, outrage, indignation, fear, despair, disgust, contempt, and a certain kind of apocalyptic glee. Something I didn't realize when we started StoryNet, I kind of started it for selfish reasons. I wanted to be better at telling stories, and the fact that I get to get up on stage is I enjoy that. And what I didn't realize was how much power there is, not just in these 8 people, but we had 70 to 75 people here. That means we had at least 60 people who were just here to listen. And this is the point I harp over and over about Story Night. It isn't just storytellers, it's story listeners. And this is what I believe we need more. When we read a book, like, is it The Light Within? I'm sorry, what's the name of it?
Light of the World.
Light of the World. Dang it, I knew I was going to mess that up. By Elizabeth Alexander. It's the adult book for one book, one community. You read a book like that and you get to experience what somebody, it's like listening. Because you get to learn from somebody who had tremendous hope and resilience before a great loss, a death of her beloved, and the hope and resilience that happens afterwards. It's beautiful. If you haven't read it, I do recommend. It's a good choice. Kitsap Regional Library. These people have shared stories, but you've listened, and so I think we all owe you a round of applause. And so there's more where that came from next month, the first Thursday of the month, which is November 4th. We're going to be back at the Cloverleaf. I want to thank, first of all, the Roxy, the folks at the Roxy for keeping this beautiful building alive. I'm thrilled that this is a going thing. I'm going to make it a point to keep coming to movies here because I want this thing to be around for a long, long time. A lot of history here. And I think tonight's experience personally was kind of a dream come true to have this stage for these stories. Also, to BCAT, to John there, BCAT, for filming this and broadcasting it live. And it will be... The recording of this will continue to be available on their channel, also at storynight.org, and we'll put it out on YouTube. And also, Kitsap Regional Library, you guys are phenomenal. Love the work you're doing. We got 70, 75 people out here on the night when there's a Seahawks football game. And I am so proud of you and so honored to be in partnership with you. So, we'll see you next month, and as I always say, I look forward to hearing your story. Thank you.